Good morning and welcome to the Emerson Institute at City of Light. I'm Reverend Dr. Paul Gretz, and it's a delight to welcome you to our class on the book Alchemy by Paul Selig. Today's discussion is going to be filled with all kinds of great insight and energy, so let's prepare to receive all that God has in store for us. We do this traditionally by doing some breathing in through our nose, holding for a brief moment, and releasing out through our mouth. This is to just breathe in the goodness of God and to release out all stress and tension. Any distractions that have come to you, we want to let them go so that we are open and ready to receive all the insight that God has for us. So would you join with me as we breathe together? Let's take a deep breath in. Breathe in and release. Deep breath in and release. Deep breath in and release. And in this moment of silence, let's set our intention of that which we desire to transpire in our life during this time that we share together. Just name that desire. Whisper it right now within. And so it is. All right. I hope you have your note packet ready for those of you who are joining us through live streaming and our YouTube channel, City of Light Atlanta. If you'd like a note packet and you've not received one as of yet, please reach out to me at revtpaul@aol.com. We'll make sure that our registrar sends you a note packet prior to each and every class. That way you have a chance to look through the notes, prepare yourself for our study, and then grab that pen and paper and follow along. Maybe highlight or underline some key comments that have been made or some sentence that really resonates within you, because at the close of our class, I'm going to ask you what's your takeaway. What really spoke to you about this class session? So we want to hear not only from our students who are joining us in person here at the Dr. Angelo Pizzello Wisdom Center on the third floor of City of Light, as well as you who are joining us through live streaming. So we want to have this wonderful class connection. I also want to let you know that if you have a comment or a question, you can simply type it in, and our registrar, Dr. David Carter, is monitoring our Facebook connection, and so he'll see your responses or your questions and flag me, and we can create that dialogue and exchange. We want to make sure that every student is engaged in this learning process, so we want to do the best we can through this medium of live streaming, as well as those of you who are joining us in our in-person session. We want to encourage you to ask questions, wave that hand, because we'd love to make sure that everybody is receiving a clear understanding of this teaching today. So with that, let's begin. Let's take out our notes and let's dig into this class number 4 on the chapter, The Rising. Possibilities abound, but we deny possibilities because we are taught what we could be and what we cannot be. So we have to understand that the journey of this life, quite often we are injected with this idea that we cannot do certain things, we're not able to do certain things, or what we are is that we are unworthy, that we're sinners, that we're separated from the divine, and we go over this constantly in our spiritual understanding. And in our classes, we want to make sure this is very clear, because so much of a separation consciousness impacts our day-to-day journey, impacts the journey of the soul. So we want to make sure that we understand that there are lots of possibilities available to us. But quite often, we're the ones limiting our own selves to the highest and best, to the possibilities that are available to us, because we have been ingrained with a teaching that says, well, we're not as good as, we can't receive this, we're not capable, we're living in lack, we're separate from this divine power and presence, whatever it may be. Now, we've agreed to the idea that we're separate, and we're removed from, and we create our own reality from this belief, because we bought in to a separation consciousness. And I'd like for us to take a moment to really think about this. Where have we embraced a separation consciousness or an idea that we are not connected or that we are separate from? Quite often that can be in a feeling like maybe we're better than someone else. We're holier than someone else. We're more spiritual than someone else. We're more educated than someone else. We're more sophisticated than someone else. We can go on through the list of where we might apply some sort of separation thinking. We might also think that in this consciousness of separation, that we begin to engage in a judging atmosphere, a consciousness that judges other people, that says, well, if only you did this, or if only you did that, or if only you lived your life the way I think you should live your life, you might be better, you might be this, you might be that. So that's, again, separation thinking or consciousness is created in our condemnation and in our judging of one another. So throughout life, we've agreed to this, and we do make judgments. And sometimes we think it's healthy to make judgments, to separate ourselves from people who are not as good as, or as knowledgeable, or as loving, or as kind. And so sometimes we begin to judge, and that creates this barrier of separation. Now, the very teaching of the New Testament is talking very clearly that there is no separation, there is no partiality, there is no Jew, no Greek, no male, no female, no Gentile, no Jew, etc., etc. Those are just metaphors of the many forms of separation where we may say, well, there's black and there's white, and there's gay and there's straight, and there's male and there's female, and we think about all these things that are forms of a separation thinking that sort of pull us apart. And in that consciousness, then we like to judge. And we often, in our humor, make judgments like, well, women are smarter than those stupid men. And, women know better and those kind of things. And then there's men who would say, well, women are just dumb blondes and, they don't know as well as we do. So there's all these kind of judgments and condemnations that we can create within our life. This is what we're talking about. Separation thinking and how it creeps into our life. And it stems from a belief that we are removed or separated from God. So again, in our more fundamentalist Christianity throughout the United States of America, it's a teaching that man has sinned in the Garden of Eden, and there is a separation, and that because of that separation, there's a great gulf between God and humanity. And that Jesus came to die on the cross to bridge that gulf. And it is only through Jesus that you gain access to God, because God is too angry and too upset and too holy and has separated himself from humanity. Now, this thinking has been based in a total misinterpretation of Scripture, because we know that we're created in the image and likeness of God, and that each man and each soul, each woman, each person, each thing is created in that image and likeness of God. So that image and likeness is not a separation whatsoever, but a connection and a sense of oneness, not a sense of separation. And so there's a theology that is created in fundamentalism and biblical literalism that is based truly on the teaching we must understand how separate we are from God. So again, once we embrace that we are separate from God, we think we can also be separate from one another. So we can say, well, I want to separate myself from you. I judge you. I condemn you. Jesus said, I came not to condemn. I came not into the world in the spirit of condemnation. I'm not here to judge you. And Jesus was in the very spirit of love and connection and celebrating in dining and eating and living and teaching and engaging with all those that the world of today might say are the unlovely, or the sinful, or the ones that we would want to disconnect ourselves with, or not associate ourselves with, or build a wall between of separation. So what happens is then we begin to create our own reality from a belief that we have that we're separate from God. So when we engage in this thinking that we're separate from God, then our reality is that we're living in is I feel separate, I feel distant, I don't feel God connected with me. When I pray kind of begging, beseeching, and pleading and crying out to God as if God's not listening because of this separation. I feel as many ways that I need to do something to appease this God who is separate from me. That if I'm only good enough, kind enough, gentle enough, go to church enough, tithe enough, that somehow I will be loved by God. That it has to be some sort of grace that is earned, but grace is unmerited favor, unearned favor. So we need not do anything to earn that. And this grace is what connects us, yet we have a theology that says that grace is there, but that grace only comes through you doing something that God insists that you do, and that is to come through Jesus, who is simply the revelation of the divine, and yet we've made him into being something more than the revelation, made Jesus into being our God versus a revelation of the God. So when we move Jesus from being the way shower, teacher, and example to the great exception in our theology. And when we made him the great exception, we've then said everything he does, well, we cannot do. So we also, in that thinking, begin to separate ourselves from the teaching of Jesus. You see how this separation thinking goes on and on and on, and it begins to just manifest, and our reality goes larger and larger, that we are far and distant from the divine presence that is here in love and grace and compassion and in great joy and in great peace for our lives. Here, right now, need not be felt separated from it at all. We just seem to need to change our thinking to embrace the very teaching of Scripture that has been there down through the ages, that God has so loved the world, loving that world so completely, not separated from it, that he gave Jesus, when we say the only begotten Son, gave this very principle, this teaching that is found through Jesus, the great example, to help us understand the very love of God. And that love of God is not one that is found in anger and resentment that says, you know what, some blood's got to be shed here or I'm not going to be happy. You know, somebody's got to die here. Jesus, I'm going to send you to die. I need some blood to be on the cross. I need some real sacrifice. I need a blood sacrifice to atone for this the sin that we're seeing in the world and how distant, separated I am from. And let that blood be this connection. Yet Jesus' teaching is the way. The teaching, what he embodied and what he presented to us as an example is the gateway for us understanding that God's love has always been with us. And that God sent this great teacher, that God sent the way shower, that God sent one who embodied the sonship that we all should embody, a realization that we are children of God, that we are sons, daughters of God, that in that sonship we are heirs to all the goodness of God, that there is no separation whatsoever, but that generosity is there. We find this theological premise in the very story of the prodigal son. The prodigal son leaves home, squanders his inheritance, finds himself at the lowest end of life, is eating the food that is given to the pigs, and then returns in a heart of repentance and saying, I want to come home. The father is waiting and watching for the day that the son returns, not feeling separate at all, but a heartfelt connection that says, I am expecting, I am loving, I am not removed at all from this relationship, but waiting, and sees the son coming home and rushes out to meet him. That's not a story of separation. That's not a story where the son comes and wonders, is the father home? I don't know. The lights are off. The father's so separate from me. I maybe have to ring the doorbell, knock on the door 6 or 7 times, and hey, is anybody home? I'm sorry, and I know you don't want to answer the door because I've ticked you off so much, and I know you're really mad at me, so that's not the story at all. You see, it's not a story of separation. It's a story of infinite love. Let's begin with Lethe, and then we'll go to Dr. David Carter.
I was just thinking about that story of the prodigal son. It's so powerful. But what I noticed is that the son went out living in squalor, and the father did not go to get him. He had to be the one to go to the Father. I thought that was kind of interesting. I think of myself as a parent, I'd probably want to go out there and do it. But I think that story has a lot of meaning, a lot of twists and turns in there, that we have to be the one to initiate, to ask, to go. The Spirit does not, kind of
right.
intrude on us. We
Yes.
have to be the one.
And how true this is, because what we find is the Father is waiting, so he's not ignoring. The Father is not separate or removed, but waiting for the Son to make the choice to return. And we live in the world of free will and free choice, correct? And that's part of our understanding of this spiritual journey, that God is simply waiting for us to make the choice. So God is waiting, always there, ever present, but simply waiting for you to return home to the consciousness of your sonship, of your relationship with the divine, for you to make that choice. Let's go to Dr. David Carter and your comment.
When we begin to see the light, when we begin to awaken, the light meets us. So our light, when we start shining our light, the greater light meets us there.
Beautiful. Yes. A great illustration of that. So we find so much of the theology of Jesus, the very teaching of Jesus in the Prodigal Son story, yet we have somehow gone away from the teaching of Jesus and created a theology that would more so represent a story of the Father, being ticked off and locking the door and shutting it off and saying, there ain't no way you're coming back until you grovel and beg and plead. There is no way, and I don't, I've moved on. I am withholding from you. And in this story, again, there's nothing being withheld whatsoever from the Son. In fact, there is the declaration from the Father, go kill the fatted calf, let's feast and dine. Put a robe on him, ring, the family crest, slip it on his finger. This is who he is. This is my Son. And this is who he always has been, is my Son. You see, the Father never disowned him. It's the Son who left the home. The Father didn't throw him out because he wanted the inheritance to go out. The Father didn't say, well, if that's the way you're going to be, I'm going to send you off into hell, a hellish life in this world. But it's all based on the choices that the Son made. So it's based on our choices. Our spiritual life and its outcome and its reality is based on the choices that each and every one of us make. So we find here that in many ways we've been raised to deny the divine, to actually suppress the divine within us. We've been raised to not even be aware of our own divinity, of the presence of God in us, that the kingdom of God dwells within, that this heavenly realm is all within us. So we've been raised in a way to think other that actually is in a denial or a suppression or sort of shoving it down, that which is our true nature of who we really are. We've been raised in that way. So it really requires us to have some renewing of our mind, a rebirthing of our thinking, to be born again and start anew in a new thought, in a new consciousness, in a new awareness. Now, the new possibility for each and every one of us is to become an alchemist. What is the alchemist? But one who transforms and creates. So there's a beautiful passage in Romans 12:2. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Might also say, be an alchemist. Go forth and be an alchemist and transform, create, make a change within your life. The alchemist is this person who recognizes that they are a divine expression and that God is in them, flows through them, is around them, and always for them. So we understand that that's the transformationalist, someone who understands fully. If you want to be a transforming person, a transforming dynamic personality, a transforming energy in this world, a transforming life force that brings about and facilitates change in this world, it begins by us accepting this role of being an alchemist, of saying, I want to express this transformation in me. I want to acknowledge that the presence of God is in me. It's always been in me. That's how I was created. I was created in the image and likeness of the divine. That image and likeness has always been there. No matter what I do, it's always there. It's always going to be there. So, it's sort of like me as a white man. I can suntan in the sun. I can go for a spray tan if I want. I'm always going to have white skin. It's always going to be there. Why? Because that's what I was created, the body created with white skin. Now, we can try to color it, disguise it, put makeup on it, change its images, all that you want, but it's still white skin and it's still there. So your skin color is there within you, whether it be black or brown or whatever tone you may choose to identify as. It's simply saying that you are what you created, and the world around you may try to convince you to cover that up or to change it, to deny it, suppress it, whatever it may be. But within you is still this divine awareness, a consciousness that we need to awaken to. This is the born again experience that Jesus talked about. Born again to the understanding who you are, that you are a child of God. You are the Son. And that Son meaning the heir to all the good. That Jesus isn't the only Son, each and every one of us sons, for Jesus said, "Know ye not that ye are God's?" In other words, that God dwells in you, each and every one. Jesus didn't say, he said, "I am the Son of Man, just like you are. I'm human, just like you are. But I acknowledge my sonship. I acknowledge this." And he invites you to do the same each and every day, to acknowledge your sonship, to acknowledge your divinity within you, to acknowledge that you are created in the image and likeness of God. And what does that mean? Well, all the goodness of God is there within you. All the power of God is within you. Not to its totality, but to what I want to say is that you are a portion of that. And it is something for you to tap into. There are infinite possibilities available for you. So when we recognize that we are this divine expression, we become then this one who can be a transformer, an alchemist, one who can create change. Because it begins there of realizing the divinity within you, the power within you, the presence within you, the capabilities that are already innately within you as this child of God. Now, to illustrate, okay, Anne has a question going on.
I'm sitting here thinking about separation and oneness, and I realized that I came to oneness by virtue of the topic energy, which was on my paper. But it all started with me way back. It's been a journey where I first and foremost did energy medicine. I studied homeopathy, and I began to realize the potency of that. And so, I believe in oneness because I do believe every one of us has an energy or a soul or a spark within themselves. But when you think about the soul and the personality, they are different. That's not talking about separation, though, is it?
Right.
A separation concept?
Right. It's not talking about...
You're saying personality could be white hair, black hair, big
an expression
hands,
of
little
uniqueness.
hands.
Yes, an expression of uniqueness.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're separate. It just
Right.
means that there's a unique expression.
And the personality is what we build from the day we're born. And, we have choices, which is what you're saying, be transformed. So we have choices. We don't have choices about changing our soul, but why would we? Because
Right.
that's the spark of
Right.
God within us.
But we have choices of how the soul is expressed. Right. And how we live out our life. Good. So to illustrate this, the author gives us the example of a barren field. This is a metaphor of, say, for instance, an idea that we just can't get off the ground. We can't grow. It's not flourishing. An idea that, that in our mind that somehow we may think we're not as good as, we're not capable of. Healing is not for us. Abundance is not for us. Yet what a field is a place where things can grow. And when we accept who we are as divinity within, we see God within all people, all things, and all experiences, and the field then is changed and it's reknown or seen differently now, and it's known now as a field of possibilities, able to bring forth fruit. what happens is you're not forcing anything, but what you're simply doing is accepting things not as the world sees, but as God sees. How does God see everything? Well, God created everything, and what did he say? Oh, it's flawed, and it's a mess, it's terrible. No, he didn't say that at all, did he? He said, well, it's cheap, it's broken, it's tawdry, it's something to be ashamed of. No, he didn't say that at all. God said he created everything and said, it is good. That's right. It's good. So how does God see you as? Good. God sees you in that perfection, what God created you as. Now, you may have chosen to express your life not so good in ways that are not perfect. You may have chosen to ignore that good that's within you. You may have chosen to deny it. You may have chosen to suppress it, but it's still there. So when we begin to change our thinking and transform our mind from seeing it solely from the way the world sees us, and that's all of our insecurities, our lack, our limitations, but seeing us as God sees us, that it's perfect, possible, and productive. So this is this example of a field, and you may look at that field and think it's not possible to grow anything here. Oh, it's too much sun or not enough water, it's too hot. We begin to look at all the limitations. Why it can't, it won't work, it's not going to happen. And we come from a very negative approach in all of our thinking in life. And then God is inviting us to see as God sees, that in everything there is possibility, in everything there is perfection, and in everything there is productivity and a chance to manifest within. So what we have to understand is that in this little square in your notes, there's a little graphic there. If you look in the bottom of the page 1, you are beautiful, for you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Do you understand that that's from the Bible? That's not some little wonderful affirmation somebody's thrown out. That's not, some feel-good kind of thing. This is spiritual truth. You are beautiful. That's how God sees you. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, meaning honorably and respectfully. You're made in this way with a great awe about how you are created. And that is how God has made you, and that's how God sees you. Norma.
What verse is that? Because I can't read it on my phone.
It is from Psalm 139, verse 14.
Thank you.
Great. So what we understand is that miracles will happen in your life when you agree, or let's say you align with this wonderful truth, that all is perfect, for it is made of God. So no matter what you're going through, I want to tell you that if you're facing some sort of health challenge right now, you are perfect. Though there may be this health challenge that's in this world, again, you are not limited to this health challenge. So when we begin to see ourselves not as, oh, I have this sickness, or I am this sickness, or this sickness is out to destroy me, instead we see ourselves from this wonderful agreement, I am the divine, and the divine is perfect, and perfection is mine. It is from that standpoint of possibilities that healing begins to unfold for our lives. Anne.
So what I'd say is, I feel that if I have a health challenge, it doesn't diminish God's love for me. God's not saying, well, you are not perfect, because it is looking at us spiritually. So it doesn't mean we are any less in the eyes of our Creator.
Right. And so what we can see is that some of the health challenges we face are based on our choices. So we may have chosen to worry and be stressed, and we have an ulcer. That's based on our choices. We may have made choices to be more gluttonous and then we're overweight. So, we have all these things that are choices in our life, okay? And those health consequences can be based on our choices. But those are our human choices, but innately within us is our divinity and our perfection. So we have a chance to ignite that viewpoint of God within us, that we move away and we align ourselves with making better choices in life. Dr. David Carter has a question or comment.
My comment was, speaking of what you just said, I read an article this past week that said, isn't it wonderful to know that instead of just being a spark of the divine, that you're fully divine just as you're fully human, because your innate self is fully divine, and you're fully human. You're both of them, not a spark, because a spark is something tiny. But when I say I am fully divine, that to me gives me an entirely different impression of who I am, not just who I am to God, but who I am to myself.
And that spark, every spark is full of amazing potential. We have seen in California a simple spark start a blazing inferno that has gone for thousands of miles. We know a spark has infinite potential. So when we understand that, we know within us, when we say the spark, it may seem like a small little thing, but out of that spark has infinite potential, just as the grain of a mustard seed, being so small, has the infinite potential to grow to be this tree of mustard. Yes, Steve.
About splitting the atom. The atom. I mean, when we split the atom, what did we create?
Right, energy.
The atomic bomb, too.
Amazing potential, yes, from something so small. So let's not look at the smallness as saying, we are just tiny and insignificant, but that smallness, that spark, is full of infinite possibilities. So it may start out there, but let's let that spark grow, as David is suggesting, that we are much more as we allow that spark to just grow and those embers to increase and to glow within us. Before you know it, you do have a burning fire within. Yes. Lethe.
So I'm picking up off Anne. God sees us as spirit, and that spirit is whole.
Yes.
Okay? Now, if we can, we have some kind of physical ailment here. If we can tap into that, I'm trying to understand how to heal myself. If we can tap into that whole spirit that is within us and ignite something, it will affect the outward.
Yes. That's true, because what happens is faith is the substance of things hoped for. This faith is stemming from a belief of our own divinity, that there's goodness within us. And from that spark, there radiates this energy of healing within us. It is those people who have ignored that spark who have then put more thought process in the illness. I have cancer. I'm dying. This is who I am. They've moved towards that thought process and away from the thought of what is the divine within us. Okay? So we can ignite this healing power to manifest within us. And
I saw at the pool the other day, there was a girl, she was about 5 years old, and she wanted to go off the diving board. So her mother said, well, okay, go ahead. And she climbed up, and the mother went to the side where the stairs were. And the girl walked out, and she was so nervous, it was jiggling, And she said, Mom, get in the water. And the mother said, no, I'm not getting in the water. 1, 2, 3, go. And the girl wouldn't go yet. And I watched her. She walked back, then she walked ahead again. She looked down at that water and she jumped in. And everybody in the pool, there were about a dozen people around, everybody clapped. And she had this big smile, and I said, that girl's on her way. She made a choice. She knows her own power.
Yeah.
beautiful illustration.
Yeah.
Great.
The high dive? Was this the high dive?
No, we don't have a high dive anyway.
Oh.
Good. All right.
Low dive.
So when you release the idea that the field is barren in this illustration, you allow your true potential to manifest. So what you're releasing is this idea of limitation, hopelessness, that you are on your own, that you're removed from the divine healing power of God to restore, renew, and rebuild within your body. So what you're doing is you're releasing these ideas, this separation consciousness, this thought that somehow you're removed from God, but that God's presence is in you. So let's let this powerful presence radiate health and wholeness through our bodies by acknowledging it. The power of God is within me. The good of God is in me. The perfection of God is within me. And I allow that perfection to now radiate through my very body. Now, people say, oh, you're just saying some things. Just some positive thinking that you're hoping will make an impact on your healing process. But we've all joined in on the class with the study on the bottle of water, where the Japanese doctor did a study and he spoke to that water, this bottle of water for, I think it was 30 days. And he spoke, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And when they went to examine the crystals in the water, they were all jagged. Under a microscope, they revealed this rough edges of all the crystals within the water. Then he took a bottle of water and he, for 30 days, said, I love you, I love you, I love you. The power of the energy that was given to each one was transformational. For the bottle of water that had been spoken to in positive healing words of love, well, the crystals were perfect and they were beautiful. Under a microscope, there was a big difference. This is science proving exactly what Scripture has been teaching us, that as we begin to claim our healing, when we begin to speak our truth, when we begin to give voice to our truth, there is a transformation within the body. So there's a transformation within our thinking. There's a transformation that impacts, for our thoughts create our reality. So we change. We facilitate the healing by beginning to say, I'm whole, I am well, I am perfect. This divine presence is now healing within my body. And I want you to not only just say it casually and flippantly, but I want you to say it with such intense knowing and feeling. I want you to feel the perfection of God in your body. I want you to feel that divine presence as if it were a warmth, a glowing ember, just radiating warmth within you. To feel that healing divine presence and coupling it with that which you know to be true, we create this dynamic energy of knowing and feeling coming together. This is the faith that you say, I claim this promise and I believe it so that I act, I live as if. And together we ignite something amazing to happen within our life. So stop seeing sickness and see the perfect. See the whole body. Stop seeing the limitation and see unlimited possibilities. It's a shift in how we look at things that's going to open the door for the miraculous. Let's make that shift, that we now see infinite possibilities. Dr. David Carter.
Okay, so whether it's a barren field, a literal field, whether it's our own health and wholeness, whether it's what we see going on in the world, war, shootings, mass shootings, we see with the eyes of God. We say that. We see with the eyes of God within, all around us, through us, as us, and always for us.
Right.
When we say that, we transform our thinking. How does that transform the discordant thing that we observe? Let's say a shooting in a mall, a mass shooting in a mall. When we're there in that moment and
the more that we all embrace this and we begin to make a change in society's consciousness, it starts with each and every one of us. So as we begin to see the divinity within people, and we see the divinity within the shooter, we see the divinity within other people, we move deep into the cause. Why did this shooter come into the school to shoot? We see the pain, we see the hurt. We're more in tune with the healing process, that we might eradicate this, that we might eradicate all these kinds of evil that wants to rise up, because when we begin to see from the divine eyes, not us eyes of judgment, because how often have we not seen people begin to judge the shooter? Well, that horrible kid, he was stupid anyway. He was autistic, or he has a bully, or he had problems. We want to blame and we want to go on, rather than saying, well, what could we have done in the world to create a healing consciousness, or to acknowledge the wound? Had we seen the divinity within that child earlier on? Yes.
Okay. But in that moment, as we transform our thinking, the people around us will be affected by that as well. Because when you see something like that, our normal reaction is to judge and be horrified.
Right.
But if
And
one
be in fear.
person, right. But if one person sees with the eyes of God within, their seeing will radiate out to the other people so that you prevent mob action,
Right.
as retribution.
Exactly. Because one spark of fear consciousness spreads and bounces, and before you know it, you've got a whole fear-based consciousness everywhere, and people are frightened and terrified. And so when we offer one spark of seeing the divine in every experience, in every moment, we begin to try to see and ignite a possibility thinking versus a fear-based thinking. And
so Paul Selig's book, The Word, the first of the trilogies, he uses the term, I am word, word I am. And not only when you would see something like that, if you would repeat that to yourself, not only would it pull you out of your fear and out of your negative thinking, but he also and the Ascended Masters say that it brings you to the Christ consciousness, which then allows you to see with the eyes of God. At least that's how I'm taking it, and that's how it's working with me when I stop. It stopped that circular thinking, all that judgment and all the rest. I am word, word I am. And then you're aware that Christ consciousness within you, because it's there in everybody. And how could that not affect people around you if you're not being violent back or something, I don't know, I might be violent back. I might dive towards him, no.
well, I think we're going to find more about this as we go through our notes today that'll answer even more of our questions. Because here's the thing, it's the realization of the new that prompts the new growth. The barrenness of the field is simply an idea that we hold in mind. It's an idea that we hold in mind as we've judged the field, right? We've judged it as barren, unable to produce. But as we remold our thinking, and I like that, reshape, remold, whatever, that's the word transformation. We remold our thinking from Romans 12:2, be transformed, be remolded, be remolders by the renewing of your mind. We're releasing the idea from the way it was known, from what we thought was possible. We're releasing that consciousness to now what can be possible and what is possible. And so we become this alchemist that transforms our thinking. And our thoughts create our reality, so we're transforming our thoughts to a new reality of success and prosperity, productivity, and blessing in our lives. So we find from Revelation chapter 21, verse 5, it says, behold, I make all things new. Okay? Meaning that the terrifying illusions of lack and separation have been vanished. God is removing these illusions in our life because they're simply illusions. We're terrified and frightened of things that are just simply illusions in our life. When I mean they're illusions, we've created this fear, and we have no need to be fearful of anything, right? Because in God, there is no fear, right? Can we get that? So fear then is the lack of God. It is an illusion that we create in our mind because we've welcomed the lack of God. It's this simple concept that if God is light and we turn off the light, what do we have? Darkness. Darkness is that fear. Now we turn the light on, what happens to the darkness? It's gone, right? So in the middle of the night, when you turn the light on in a dark room, what happens? Darkness is gone, right? That happens every time we begin to acknowledge God. So fear is gone when we acknowledge God. So what happens is when we change our thinking, we need not be in fear. We need not act from fear. We need not live with thoughts of separation that God is withholding or keeping anything from us, or a sense of lack that there's not enough for us. So we look at this passage from the book of Revelation 21. It says, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. Meaning I see it right here. I see an earth from a new perspective. I see this new high consciousness. For the first heaven and the first earth have passed away, meaning this old idea of this world that we live in. And the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. This is all very metaphorical word pictures that we do not take literally, but we understand the city of perfect peace coming out from heaven, from God, from our higher consciousness, that Jerusalem is the wonderful essence of the place of peace, of shalom. So we find then that Revelation 21 announces with a loud voice, the home of God is among the mortals, meaning God is dwelling right here in you. Do you see a new heaven and a new earth? Do you see a new consciousness and a new way of living it? That's what it's saying for us. That he will dwell with them and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them. And he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away. And death will be no more, meaning separation. Death is that word that is used to describe separation, as if you've died. Now, we think about death, and I think of my beloved Robert who passed away, and I'm feeling separation. Death says, I'm separate from him. And that's this worldly consciousness, this earthly consciousness, that there is some sort of separation. But in the divine, there is no separation, and there is no death. We're not separate from anything. We're not separate from anyone. There is no separation. Now, in our physical thinking, we're going to think about all the separations we have, and then we have to hold in mind in the divine, we're never separate, but we're connected in all ways at all times with one another. So, unfortunately, so many people have taken this passage from Revelation to be some sort of projection of the end times versus understanding of what is here right now for us. It's a time for us now to claim a new heaven and a new earth, meaning a new consciousness and a new way of living it out in this world. That we're not living it out from separation, but we're living it out that this divinity is within us, and now we see a whole new world. We see a whole new world unfolding before us because we're seeing it with the eyes of understanding God in us, through us, around us, and always for us. So what happens is all earthly illusions of duality, of this and that separate, and separation from source, they're gone. And now, in this passage that we're talking about, the one who is seated on the throne speaks for himself. In other words, God is saying, the divinity within us that is on the throne, I'm making all things new, okay? Now, it's not that they're really new. It's just that you're seeing them new. For new is to see things as they truly are. So it seems new, right? Like you may think you see something differently, a piece of art. And I had a friend who had a piece of art that they purchased and had hung it in his living room, was never just quite certain what it was, and didn't quite enjoy it, and struggled with this contemporary piece. And we took it down and we turned it around. It was like a whole new piece of art. Now I see it. I get it. I was hung it upside down. That was my problem. Now, was the new art new? No, it was the same piece of art. It was just seeing it differently, seeing it anew. Well, we've been raised to think about things in a certain way. We've been raised to see the world a certain way. Like it's impossible, it's limited, whatever. But you cannot know something anew when you claim it as old. So let's turn it around. Let's be born again. Let's have a new thought. Let's take a new thinking. Let's transform our mind. Let's turn the art upside down. And suddenly we get, oh, I love it because I see it anew. Now, Anne.
When I was working, the school nurse and the counselor did human growth and development in 5th grade. And he used to challenge them a lot with ideas. And he said one day, what would you do if a kid in your class was flashing a knife around? And a hand went up and he said, oh, I'd run over there, I'd grab that knife out of there, And John was so good, he said, no, let's do a new thought. No, let's think about it, and he said, how about you raise your hand and ask to go to the restroom, and that way you can get down and tell the principal about it. And the kid said, what if my teacher won't let me go to the bathroom? And he said, then you just quietly and gently get up from your seat, walk out the door, and get down. You know, in other words, let's find a peaceful idea, you know. And so here's some violence that's coming out of a normal 5th grade kid. That's how they solve problems in 5th grade. You know, he's learning what you have to do. You have to learn to do it another way. You know, I could not have answered that with that intelligence at that point in my life. So I was glad.
Great. Seeing things from a new perspective is what we're all called to do. Norma.
I have a question.
Yes.
If somebody comes to you for advice, and you know that you're not heavily into metaphysics and don't know your language, and they're having a problem, and they're telling you all about how bad their problem is, it's just terrible, they don't have anything over it, do you tell them, let's stop thinking about how bad it is and start thinking about how good it could be? When you follow the instructions the doctor gave you and you do what you're supposed to do, you're going to have healing. Do you take that kind of an approach?
Definitely, because quite often the problem with a problem is we think it's a problem. And so we've got to shift to, here is an opportunity for a solution. So when we move from problem thinking to solution thinking, we're making a shift. And that's what you simply want to do, is invite your friend in this scenario to simply, let's move from dwelling on the problem, to let's talk about the solution. And you'll never find the solution when all you think about is the problem. Okay? So the problem is there for you to unfold a new solution, a new experience within your life. So it's an opportunity. Everything that comes to your life becomes an opportunity. This is an opportunity for you to manifest, opportunity for you to demonstrate, opportunity for you to reveal the power and presence of God. So every problem is solution oriented. Let's begin to help them move to that kind of thinking. So now what we want to understand is, you cannot know love for another when you demand that they be who you want them to be. This is the craziest thing that we have in this world, is that I'll love you if you conform to what I want you to be. I'll love you when you live your life the way I want you to live your life. I'll love you if and only when you leave your ways and follow my ways. And that's the only way I'll love you. So what we find is this separation thinking has enabled us to have a desire to build walls and division and separation from one another. Because you're not like me, I'm going to build a wall. You think differently, I'm going to build a wall. I don't agree with you, so I'm going to build a wall. I'm going to separate myself from you, which is really contrary to everything that is of the divine. And we're going to talk more about that. Because to embody this, what happens is we must release the expectations. To really embody love, we have to release the expectations of what should be. You know? Could you love somebody just the way they are and not what you think they should be? You know, the other day I was at the gym, and you know, there's some guys working out with a man bun. You know what I'm talking about. I don't find it very attractive, okay? You know, hair pulled up as if they're going to the prom, and then maybe they've got those earbuds in that look like little white earrings, you know, and think, oh, honey, you are so ready. A little lace dress, and you're off to the prom. I know it. You just look like it. To me, I'm passing a judgment, okay? I'm guilty. Passing a judgment on this person and their expression and their creativity. And yes, they have long hair and they want to put it up in an evening look while they work out at the gym. You know, whatever it may be. You see how my words are full of all kinds of judgment right there. Then I have to just release that. And not what kind of haircut they should have. because I said, oh my God, I have just turned into my father, who back in the 70s says, cut that long hair. You look like a hippie. What are you doing with that hairstyle? Judging, boy, have I turned into an old man, But we judge people with these expectations of what people should be instead of just saying, you know what? I release all that and I see the divinity within you. And how you express that is your individual creativity, Let's remove the judgments about, well, you're wearing that. Ooh, that jacket's a little loud for class, isn't it? And just see the divinity in. Or that hairstyle, or you chose this, or you're going to do that? Really? If I were you, I don't think I would, because that's, again, your condemnation. So what we want to do is the moment we begin to name people or say things, what we're doing is calling out expectations. And the author illustrates it this way. The moment you call someone a boy, what you're doing is you're releasing expectations based on society's teaching and acceptance of what's attached to that name. Well, he's a boy. He shouldn't wear his hair up because society says boys don't do that. That's for women. So you see how that's a judgment, a condemnation based on society's thinking and what we think a boy should be or should do. And we all become guilty of that. And that creates a separation. It creates a wall or a barrier. So when we release the name boy, we release those expectations. So let's just not see them as boy, girl, man, woman, white, black. Let's release all those names. Let go of those, because when we begin to name all these things, we put all these attachments and expectations of what we think they should be according to us. And of course, we're the authority, right? We think we are. We think we know. That's not what a boy should do. I'm certainly the former authority of what a boy should do. We all make ourselves out to be that. That's not what a man should do. Being gay is not what a man should do, or being a woman shouldn't be wearing that or doing that. See how we do this stuff all the time? So we attach, when we are naming something, we attach some sort of expectation based on society, and it limits us from seeing the divinity within, seeing the God within someone. So what happens is, when we begin to name all these things, we have these expectations that, well, a boy or a man should look this way, and because they don't look this way, they must not be a man, so we've judged and condemned them. But we release all that. Because I want to tell you this. You are not your hairstyle. You are not your body. You are not the coat you're wearing. You are not the clothes you're wearing. You're not your gender. You're not your race. None of these are your true nature. Okay? Hold on those moments. I'll be right with you. Because when we stop attaching the should of what we have known or expected things to be, what happens? We can open ourselves now to seeing the divine. I want to see God in you. I don't want to see your hairstyle. I don't want to see what you're wearing. I don't want to see your gender. I don't want to see your skin color. I want to see the divine in you. And from there, everything changes. When I first see the divinity in you, how I look at everything else changes completely. All right, let's go to Dr. David Carter and then Steve Ginn.
Okay, Diane Mundine online.
All right, Diane.
How do you see the divinity in an individual whose lifestyle can endanger their life?
Because again, great question, Diane. Thank you. Again, what it is about seeing the divinity, not seeing what they do, not seeing their outer actions and the choices they made, but looking within them, because the choices they made are not God within them. Okay? They made some choices that may, or what the illustration, harm themselves. Is that right?
Right.
Endanger their life. So we see deep beyond what they do, and we see the good within them. We, as a doctor or nurse, when you're in the hospital, you don't look at the wound or the fact that this person maybe tried to cut themselves in a suicidal attempt, but you look at them and say, this is a whole person that I want to heal. I see their potential wholeness. And so the doctor isn't saying, I'm going to judge or condemn you because you cut yourself or you have a really bad gash or you have a terrible wound. But I see the possibility of healing within you, and that's what I'm here for, is to help in that process. So when we begin to see the good, the divinity within one another, we look beyond the choices they've made, the actions they've made. We look beyond their body, their hairstyle, their clothes. We look beyond their gender. We look beyond any of these choices, and we begin to see God within. Steve.
So after everything you've just said, can we then say clothes don't make the man?
There we go. Clothes don't make the man, because the man has already been made in divine image. Right. There we go. There we go. So, Steve, we see the divinity in you. Yes. And how it's being expressed is through the choices you've made. Yes. There we go. Dr. Carter.
So Diane's next question is, okay, so I see the good in them, but how do they begin to see the divinity within themselves?
That's the big challenge. Helping them to see the divinity within them is by calling it out and naming the good within them, calling forth the potential within them. It's again, as in simple raising of a child. A child may have all kinds of questions and wondering about who they and what they are. But when the parent begins to say, I see good, I see potential, I see that you have great ability to be a straight A student, what you're doing is the child being, well, really? You see that in me? You're calling it forth. What we want to do in everyone is to call forth the good. And I can't emphasize enough. You know what you're here to do when you come together in church? You're not here to, number one, shake a tambourine, get up and do the Holy Ghost dance. You're not here to be a part of a praise band. You're not here to quote a lot of scriptures. You're not here to, you know what it says? You're here to build up the body. You're here to edify. What you need to do is maybe start the service with saying, I see good in you, Brenda. David, I see amazing things of God unfolding in your life, and I see incredible potential. When we gather together, what we're doing is calling forth the God, the good within one another. That is what true worship should be, is the acknowledgement of the presence of God in and through, right here and now, being expressed in every one. So maybe we need to have a little compliment session. Maybe we need to start service by saying, you know what? I see the amazing divinity. The light of God is brilliant within you today, Norma. I see Amy. You are just a glowing ember of the divine. And I just see love coming forth. And I see grace and compassion and forgiveness and patience and all these wonderful things. I see it in you now. Yes. All right, Dr. David Carter.
Okay, so Diane's two questions you answered. In the process of you calling forth the divinity in that person, in that moment you see them, let's say, shooting up
right.
drugs, okay? We consider that something dangerous and harmful to the body. So you see the divinity within them. You see that child of God must be hurting as they're shooting up drugs. So then you call forth the goodness that you know is in them, but you also approach that person and offer your love and care.
Yeah.
I mean, and ask them,
and calling forth
them, how can I love you?
Yeah. Because why are they shooting up in the first place? Let's get to the root cause. Because something innately they need to escape from. There's a hurt and a wound within them that they want to escape, to find this pleasure experience, to run away from the challenges of life that they're facing. So let's stop and say, wait a minute. The God in you is so immense and so wonderful. You don't need to shoot up. Let's just talk about the wonderful presence of God, and let's do the healing that is the cause, the root of the reason you want to take drugs. Okay? This is the work that we're called to do. Edify, build up, encourage, speak of the good. You know, have you not complimented someone today? Well, then start your day off on the right foot, by sending out a compliment, edify the body, build it up. Tell someone, you're amazing, you're good, because the more the people hear this, the more it instills this awareness, you're right, well, maybe there is goodness within me. And we work to counteract the world's power of imparting insecurities into our life, fears into our life, stress into our life. And this way, the scripture says, do not be molded by the world, but be remolded, okay? In other words, do not be conformed pressed into this. You are nothing. You're an idiot. You're stupid. You're not capable of. You're just a loser. Do not be squeezed into that mold, but be remolded. Be transformed. And how do we help one another in that remolding process? By edifying the body, by building up the body. So when we gather together, there should be some sense of acknowledgement of, I see the divinity in you. I see the good in you. I see the love in you. Boy, you look great today. You look really fabulous. There's how you've expressed yourself today. In your personal expression is the God in you being revealed in creativity or in joy or in comfortability or relaxing. Makes hey, you chose to be comfortable today. That means you're just comfortable, relaxed in yourself. That's how you express, God, I'm comfortable with the divinity. There's all kinds of wonderful things that we can see when we begin to see God first in someone's life, rather than first let me see and judge you by what you're wearing or what your hairstyle is or what your skin color is or what your size, your dress size is or what your clothing style is. No. First, if I go within and see within and then pull out, my whole perspective is different. But if I'm going on the outside and judging everything by the outside, I can never get through all of that outside to see the inside, right? Because the outside is all of judgment, condemnation. Well, that doesn't look very good. You're wearing that? I would never do that. Oh my God, that's ugly. Oh my God, you've put on a few pounds. So you're wearing your hair that way? And, you see how, those thoughts of judgment, they're condemning. But when we go straight to the heart, to the good, and say, instead, I see divinity in you, then everything else is just their unique expression. Yes?
Okay, so when you're at the gym, you can actually not see the man bun.
Yes, isn't that not lovely? I'm going to look beyond the man bun. Ooh, just kidding. I'm going to see the divinity in that person and the good and say that's how they've chosen to express the love of God in them. And that may be their personal expression from their perspective. And I'm not here to judge that perspective and what that looks like. Because, here's the problem. We all have these shoulds, okay? So a lot of our world of, I'm going to use the example of homophobia, is, well, men should dress this way and act this way. But when a man is not in the should, what have we done? We've judged, we built a wall, and we alienated. Because we've got all these shoulds, our expectations of societies, of what we think and what we place as judgments. And isn't it funny? Down through the years, culture has shifted and changed. Years ago, if a woman wore pants, well, that's men's clothing. No woman would ever wear a man's clothing. That's not what a woman should do. And what do we have today? We have everyone in this class all the women wearing pants. Okay? So how has the should shifted, right? Okay? Then we have things like, in ancient cultures, men wore the glamorous outfits because that's what men should do. Egyptian culture, men wore the makeup, men wore the earrings, men wore the jewelry, that was the height of masculinity because it was about male beauty in a culture that has shifted now that women wear the earrings and women wear the jewelry and women dress up. So the shoulds always will change, It's going to change with culture and there's going to be an evolution of what society thinks should be done. But let me tell you what doesn't change is the God within everyone. It's changeless. Each and every one is created in that. So when we start putting on today's current shoulds, just know that that's our own condemnation and guilt based on what we have an expectation of someone, what we think is best because we know best, right? Isn't that what we all think? I know better than you do. That's kind of our thinking in our humanity. But let's go release all that. Let's just see the divinity, the beauty, the true essence within. Okay? Re-see the world and re-see God in it fully. And when you do, there's no fear. Because let me tell you this. We can be afraid of people who don't meet up to our shoulds. We get afraid of them. They don't meet up to our expectations. They don't meet up our ideas, you know? They don't meet up what we think someone should do. And I'm going to use an example, particularly of transgendered people. Maybe let's use an example of a male to female just beginning. And we dump all kinds of shoulds on that divine essence. Well, you should do this, and a woman should do that. And if you're going to be a woman, you should look this way. And because you don't, I'm not going to see the woman inside you, the divine expression that's deep within this body. And as they're evolving and learning and finding more comfortable, sometimes they feel pressure to meet with society's shoulds in ways that are so difficult and challenging for them, because we all think of what should be. Let's get rid of the shoulds, and let's just see the divinity in each and every person. Not what you should look like, not what you should dress like, not what you should appear to be, but see as you are. And when we see people as they are, you know what? We're not afraid of them, because what we see is they're just like us. The God in me sees the God in you. There's no difference. The same God that's in me is the same God in you. There's no difference. I don't need to be afraid of you. Only reason I'm afraid of you is because I have some shoulds, some judgments, some condemnation, some separation thinking that I've attached to you, and you are different, and you're not what I think should. But again, when we see the God in one another, we see the divinity, we see the beauty, we see the likeness that we share, we see the oneness. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 12 says, "For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, that then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known." Wow. Let's just break this passage of scripture down, because it's so powerful for us. It's describing exactly what our journey is. To see through a glass darkly means that you're seeing through with some obstructed vision. The vision of our mortality and our humanness is like a window pane that's clouded over, dusty and dirty, and you can't see clearly. But to see face to face means to see things in this world with spiritual vision, which is not obstructed, but is seeing perfect. Our true self, which is the face of God, right, sees then the face of God as the true self, face to face, face to face. The true self is now looking at God. God is looking at the true self. We're face to face. Do you see that? That's what that scripture says. When you come face to face with the fact that you are the divinity, and the divinity is saying, yeah, that's who you are. We're face to face with this wonderful reflection that we see, and we see things differently. Now I know in part because I can only see things partially, because I'm constantly still seeing things from the world perspective. But then, as I am fully known, meaning I'm the divine, and I fully get this, wow, I see things totally different. I see things clearly now. There is no obstruction. So what we want to do is understand that you are not what you think you are, so stop demanding that everyone see you through the expectations you have imposed over and over again through time. We each have done this. We've exposed ourselves to demanding everyone to see us. Wait a minute. Don't see me this way. See the divinity within me. See God within me. Look beyond all of this. This is just the physical exterior. Go deep within. All right. Now, the alchemist is in love and only sees love. To be in love is to be in the high vibration of love. It is not being categorized when is lovable and is not categorizing. Let's remove the word be. It is not categorizing what is lovable and what is not. That's what that sentence should say. I apologize for that typo in your notes. It's not categorizing what is lovable and what is not. Okay? It's just love. Why is love the greatest thing in the world? Because love is the greatest thing because it is a divine principle. It's eternal and unfailing, which in the consciousness of man sees and creates only the good. Love creates only the good, sees only the good, sees the beautiful, sees the perfect, and sees that in everybody and everything, because love sees the good in the criminal, love sees the good in the thief, love sees the good in the person of a different race or color or creed. Love sees the good in someone of a different sexual orientation. Love sees the good in a person of different sexual identity. On goes the list. Love just sees the good. That's all. Because how can I be loving when I see, that's bad. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, I'm being loving. Yeah, I'm love here because I'm condemning you and judging you, and you should and you should change and you should do differently because I'm full of condemnation and judgment because I'm loving. What? How does that become love? But that's what so many in our Christian churches want to say. I am a loving person, but I have been given the right to judge you, condemn you, and say you should be as I demand you should be. And because you're not, in my love, I'm going to build a wall between you and I'm me, and I'm going to separate myself from you and have nothing to do with you because I love. Wow! How do we get to that craziness? Isn't that crazy? But that's what we hear from so many of today's hypocritical Christians. You know, saying, I love the sinner, but hate the sin. They're using that as some cop-out to say, I don't need to really love you to the fullest extent. Because if you loved someone, you would truly be there to the fullest for them. You would love them because you see the divinity within them. But see, here's the problem. In that fundamentalist, biblical literalist tradition, they teach separation. So they believe God is love, but God separates from humanity. So their idea of love is I can separate from you. I can push you away. I can judge you. I condemn you because my God does the very same thing. My God pushes me away, condemns me, and judges me because my God wants to separate from me. And so I am just acting in a godly way, and I'm pushing you away. I'm shoving you away. I'm building a wall. I'm saying, I can't have anything to do with you because you're not like me, and you're not doing what I think you should be doing. You're not living your life the way I think you should be living. And you see how that barrier comes up? So what we see is that if you are in love, let me tell you this, when you dwell in love, you're free. You're free. Because when you are in love, you cannot fear. Because in love, there is no fear. There is nothing to be afraid of. So there's no such thing as a Christian experiencing homophobia. Because phobia is a fear. And if you're in Christ, you're in love. And love knows no fear. So there is no phobias, there's no sexism, there's no ageism, there's no any of these kind of things. Let's go to David Carter and then to Ann.
Okay, so does love also say that I honor the person you present yourself to me as being? Does love say that? Or does love say, well, you say you're a female, but you were born John Johnson, so I'm going to call you he. What does love say? Does love say I honor and respect the person you present yourself to be?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And so when we love to the fullest extent, we acknowledge the beauty. We want to go to that person who they are. And certainly, if you're using the example of transgendered people, we want to make sure that love speaks the correct pronoun, because love sees that person in the way that they see themselves. So we want to make sure that we are in love, always doing that. When we love someone, we love them enough to know them, to understand them, to respect them. That's love. Love does not dismiss someone just because they're different than you. So the work that we do, because what happens is when you love, you cannot judge or deny any kind of love to anyone else, because to deny love is to deny God, who is love. Anytime you're saying, I will not love you if you don't do this X, Y, and Z. And I'm going to tell you this, as a pastor over the 43 years of ministry, I've encountered so many people in their homes that would say, my child, if they don't do what I tell them what to do, they're out the door. I throw them out on the streets. You know, I'm going to say, I can't love you if you don't do what I want you to do. And so love is conditional. And yet every Sunday in church, I'm a loving Christian. I'm a loving, loving Christian. But I've just stopped loving my own child, and I've denied God. And so what happens is God is not in that person. Now, that's not for us to be judgmental, but it's a truth that just simply says you can't see God being revealed. It's not there to be seen. All right. Who else? Anne, I think is next. Okay.
Would this be true? I don't know enough about other belief systems, but could we expand the Christianity that you're talking about? Because I understand that. I went through that in my life, and I understand Christianity. But I don't know much about other religions. Does that relate also?
Yes. And because so many religions that have moved away from the real truth, that have gotten into judgmentalism, we can find that even in Judaism and in the Islamic traditions as well. That's just the same as there are loving Christians and there are loving Jews and loving Muslims. There are exceptions in every tradition, okay? So I'm just using Christianity because we come from a Judeo-Christian culture here in the United States of America. It is the predominant religious voice or religious traditions that we deal with within the United States. Dr. David Carter.
Diane Mundine. So you let a child run over your household for the sake of love?
Do you let a child run over that? No. No. Now, here's the difference. Love is, if you love someone, you want to see the highest and best within them, okay, unfolded. So here's the problem. If that child's running through your house like crazy and distracting and being a brat, it's because the parent hasn't offered instruction. Not the parent hasn't whipped the dickens out of him enough, hasn't offered instruction. The Bible says very clearly, spare the rod and spoil the child. The rod is not the whipping stick. The rod is the rod of instruction and guidance. Here's one of our big mistakes in today's modern parenting. We've allowed television to take the role of instruction. We've allowed video games to take over the role in parenting. Rather than sitting down with the child and teaching the child and instructing the child how to behave, how to take care of themselves, how to be well-mannered, how to have life skills in general, they leave it up to television and video games and everything else and someone else in life to hopefully the child will grasp it. They have spared the rod of instruction. So if you love, you instruct. You don't whip, you don't beat, you don't punish, you instruct. So in the most loving way you can be is that you offer guidance, you offer teaching, you sit down with your child. And I think one of the things it needs to have is, you have these parent-teacher conferences that parents go to at school. Well, honey, I think you need to have a child-parent conference on a daily basis where you're sitting down and kind of going through with the child, how's it go today? Spending some loving time in instructing the child. I think many parents may read a bedtime story at evening time with their child, that it offers some instruction or guidance or teaches a moral or a value. I think we're missing the point of that bedtime story that allowed the child to have some learning experience of instruction. And again, the instruction begins at home. Don't leave it to your church. Don't leave it to your pastor. Don't leave it to your fourth grade teacher. Don't leave it to your principal at school. The instruction is a parent's responsibility. If the parent spares the rod of instruction, they spoil the child. Okay, David.
So my question then is, part of your instruction, is not part of that instruction to that child expectations? Some of it?
Yeah,
you expect them to behave. You expect them to.
Right, and here's what I want to say. Let's take that word expectation and let's shape it in this way, that we're not putting down a lot of guilt and shame with shoulds about expectation, but we're imparting within the child that honey, you know how to make good choices, and I'm excited about you making good, healthy choices in life. And I've instructed you what a good choice is and what a bad choice is and how these can benefit your life. So I know you can do that. So you offer these voice, you're calling forth the good, you're pulling the good out. I see good in you. You say to your child, I see that. You know what? I don't see a bad boy and a brat. I don't see a spoiled child acting up. But I see there's a good child in there that just is having some trouble realizing and identifying with its goodness. So I'm going to help you with instruction to say there's innately wonderful goodness within you as a child. And I'm going to call it forth. And sometimes we can do that by calling forth the good that we see in one another, by saying, we begin to shape the world around us by acknowledging the good, not by acknowledging the bad. Okay? I'm going to tell you that. You can shape your world around you, not by calling out what is the bad, but by reinforcing the good. Because what will happen is the bad will cause this child or this person in your family to kind of pull in, question, like, am I bad? I'm a failure, I'm not very good. But instead, let's call forth the good, okay? Let's name the good. This is what I love about you. This is what I see that's good in your life. This is what I enjoy being with you. When you start calling out the good, those things are really enhancing the power of molding and shaping a world that you so desire, Now, I've sit down in marriage counseling lots of times with couples, and I'll say to one partner, please close your ears while I talk to the other one. And I'll say, here's the secret. You want to transform this person? The best way you can do this is by calling forth the good in their life. Speak, I love you because this. I'm grateful because of this. I appreciate you doing this and that. Thank you for this and that. Now, you can open your ears. Please cover your ears. You want to know how to win the favor and transform this person's life? You speak forth the good. You call forth the good. You tell them, this is what I love. This is what I enjoy. Thank you for this. I appreciate this. What happens is you're going to now transform that person to be that loving person that you so want and desire and anticipate and expect and all these kind of things you might say in our world. You begin to help that transformation. You're calling forth the good in their life. And that's what shapes them. Not, dagnabbit, before I go to bed, let me tell you 3 things about you that I hate. The fact that you're a slob, you're a pig, you're rude, you're this. Tell me how that's going to transform your marriage. Tell me how that's going to make your relationship great. Tell me how that's going to help your sex life. Yeah, it's going to happen anyway. That's not going to happen, right? With after that one. Yeah, exactly. So we win by speaking. We transform the world by speaking what we see as the good, not what we see as the bad. Does that make sense? Okay.
I worked with a counselor in school that his favorite saying was, the best way to bring up a child to be a schizophrenic is to say, come here, I want to give you a hug, and when they come to you, you turn their back, which is really what I'm hearing about this. Suppose kids have been in a fight, and you don't grab them and say, I love you, but stop this. You can sit down with them and love them.
Yes.
And lovingly talk to them about the fight or what was happening or whatever. Instead of just turning your back, and that to me is almost violence, I don't love you because you're fighting.
Let's go on to the next page, and this is page number 4. Too often we want to kill those people we don't like. How many of you said that? I could kill you? Now, we don't really are saying that we want to take their life. But what happens is, those that we don't like, we deny love to them, and we separate ourselves from them. And to kill someone is to kill the self, to take the life from them. Scripture says, thou shalt not kill, and that's so much deeper than murder. Because we have many times killed and destroyed the self by our denial of love to someone. By our judgments, by our condemnation, by our building of walls of separation, by cutting them off, we've actually hurt and actually killed many a child, many an adult, many a partner. many a spouse in the journeys of our life we have killed by denying them the love. So let us be willing to release the idea of who another has been and release the data of these histories of expectations, of the shoulds, so that we may re-know one another. Re-know one another. I want to get to know you, the divine you, because that divine you is in me. And when I know the divinity in you, I know even more so the divinity within myself. And when I understand the divinity within myself, I can understand the divinity within you. And it's the face-to-face experience that we're having. I see divinity reflected back, and the divinity in me is reflecting in the mirror. And it's a face-to-face experience that you're having in the mirror of life. So release these names. You know, I'm not saying don't call anybody a boy, don't call anybody a man or a woman, or don't call anybody tall or short. I'm not saying that, but release these mental names that you see someone first and foremost as, well, that boy shouldn't have that man bun, that kind of idea. Judgment. Release the names and release the attachments and the expectations, because when you do, you're no longer claiming things through a dark glass. You are actually rolling the stone away from your tomb of life and allowing the light of consciousness to come in, to radiate from your life, okay? So we've got to roll these stones from the tombs of our life. We've got to have this resurrection experience. That's what Easter is all about, resurrecting to the light, to the wonderful truth. Now, when you rise up from the grave of this life and this reincarnation of the divine is in you, it's for the benefit of the entire world. You are being transformed. And in doing so, you're benefiting the world. You're transforming the world. Because as you renew your mind to the highest consciousness, you're going to be impacting other people to the highest consciousness. Because you're going to creating a vibrational level that vibrates at this tone. And everything else is going to want to vibrate with that and match that tone. You know? The soprano that sings the high note, and the glass matches it and shatters because the frequency is so great. You know this, you've seen that, right? Because vibration matches vibration. So your vibration of love is going to be a transforming energy that's going to start transforming your world, your family, your home, every scenario. When you start radiating love, 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 not condemnation, not judgment, because condemning, judgment takes you down to a lower vibration, and everyone responds to that low vibration. But as you speak higher and higher of the higher vibration, that frequency gets higher and everybody else responds to it. So you see this transformation that happens. You are not lost. The author wants to bring this out, that God can't find you. There's a lot of people in religion want to say you're lost. You're not lost. God didn't lose you. You know, it's simply like this, you know? When you got these days when you're like, where are my glasses? I can't find them anywhere. I think I lost my glasses. Where are they? Are they lost? They're not lost at all. I just had them on my head. Okay? That just meant I just forgot where I put them. And this is where in our life, we didn't lose God. God didn't lose us. We simply just forgot. We forgot this wonder where they are, where God is. We forgot what this is all about. So you're never lost. It's just you have to discover that where it is. The glasses that you put on the top of your head, where are they? You're looking all through the house. Where are they? Can't find them. Can't find them anywhere. They're right there. You're never lost from God. God's right here. Just take the time out to acknowledge. So what you are and what you have always been and what you can be is of God. That's right. You're created in the image and likeness. This illusion of being separate from God is simply a false illusion that the world has created in fear. And then you do this false illusion, this separation, it's used in churches to manipulate. It's used to create guilt. It's used to create shame. For in the presence of God, for in this divine awareness that you are divine, there is no fear. There is no shame. There's no need for manipulation. We don't need to manipulate someone into God. God's already there. We need just to help them to remember what's already within them. I don't need to manipulate you. I don't need to cast fear. You're going to be left behind. Jesus is coming and you'll be left. When you die, do you know that you could burn in hell forever if you haven't done A, B, and C? You know, all this manipulation and fear that churches want to preach for our lives, it's there for a purpose of fear-based separation theology and reinforcement of that. But when we remove all that, there's no need for manipulation. Because what happens is you're walking in a new journey, a journey that you don't understand or maybe know the destination, and you won't know it until you come there, that you've arrived there. Because this life is not a path to realization, it's a path in realization. You're not trying to get this. You're not trying to discover something. You're already in it. Allow it to unfold. I'm not hoping that someday I have this wonderful realization. I'm in the realization now. Let me allow it to unfold. Let me allow it to grow, develop. There are no shoulds on this journey because it's simply a walk in knowing who we are. And it's then there's all kinds of new experiences to unfold. So the author wants to close with this very thoughts in here that we need to dismantle walls. We've got some work to do. We're not here to build walls. We're here to tear down walls. And people who live in separation thinking, you know what do? They want to build walls. I want to be separate from you. Rather than I want to be one with you, I want to be separate from you. And why do we build a wall? Because of fear. In Israel today, the Israeli government builds walls all around Palestinian settlements because of fear. Now, if we remove the fear, is a necessity for walls. Well, the Palestinians are out to get us, and they're going to create crime, and they're going to blow up our cities. And the Palestinians the same way are saying, I'm afraid of the Jews and the Gentiles. The Israelites. They're going to blow up our cities. They're going to attack us. They're going to bomb us. You see, fear is just creating tit for tat in that world of the Middle East. And walls are going up higher and higher. I had the privilege to go to Bethlehem. On one side of the outskirts of Bethlehem, there's this 30-foot wall of cement that we had to drive all the way around the city to find the entrance to get into this Palestinian reservation, shall we say, where Palestinians have been confined to within these walls. Walls built because of fear. And here's our journey. We do this constantly. We build walls because we say, well, we're holy and you're not holy. We're loved of God. You're not loved of God. We're better than you. You're not as good as we are. And so we want to build these walls. And when we build walls, they're building walls out of fear, and fear is a liar. The people who build walls are going to have their rewards, and their rewards are rewards of separation. And what is separation? Fear. So when you build a wall, all you're doing is building up more fear. I don't want to be with you. I'm afraid of you. I can't stand you. I don't want to be around you. You're building wall, brick after brick after brick after fear and separation. And what you're doing is then you're denying the very presence of God in your life. So remember, a zebra may still be a zebra by naming it a zebra, right? When we say the word zebra, you've got pictures. Instantly come to mind. A zebra should have stripes. A zebra should be black and white. A zebra should look a certain way. And what happens is when you speak that word and name it as so, you reclaim the things that you think it should be. And you miss seeing truly what it is, what is greater than, and what's infinitely possible. We've just limited it to a zebra being black and white. But what if we just remove the names and the expectations and the shoulds for one another and saw the amazing possibilities of God unfolding within everyone and the amazing beauty? So this is what this whole spiritual journey is about. Let us be awakened in our night of darkness to see the light. Let's be taken into the light of new understanding. And we find this in Luke chapter 17, verse 34. I tell you, In that night there shall be 2 men in one bed. 2 men in one bed. And one shall be taken, and the other one will be left. Meaning that there could be people in partnerships, in relationships, meaning people who have shared commonality, or maybe they're brothers in a home, living in the same environment, 2 men sleeping in the same place, 2 people, and not just limited to men, 2 human beings, a husband and a wife, could be anything. They're sleeping together and you think they're in the same world, but one is raptured up into an awareness, an awakening. Aha, the light of God, the discovery, I am divine. And the other is left behind. They're not ready. They're not open. They're not willing to receive. Just know that this is what it's calling for us, is to be the one who is awakened, ready to say, in the midst of this darkness, let me see the light. Let me be the one who is remolded and transformed and changed. And let my mind be renewed from condemnation and judgment and separation. Let me remove all those things and let me just simply see God, 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 divinity, 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 God in you, God in you. Let me see the love. Let me see the good in each and every one. And when I see it, let me call it forth. Let me acknowledge it. And let me say, oh, that's beautiful. That's wonderful. I love this. I see more of it. I see God unfolding in you in beautiful ways. That's the journey of our life. That's being an alchemist. And that's our chapter today on the rising, the unleashing, the elevation of this transformation power in our mind. All right, thanks so much for joining us for this class today. And if you have a takeaway from today, I'd love to hear it. What spoke to you today? We appreciate each and every one sharing those insights and your comments and your questions. I'd love to hear what's your takeaway from the class session. So while waiting for you who are joining us through live streaming to type in your comments, we're going to go around the class and we're going to hear what their takeaway is as we move through our class and hear what spoke to them today. So let's start over here with Dr. David Carter.
I have 2 takeaways. My first takeaway is, in this country, because I can't speak of other countries, if each individual chose to become an alchemist, then we would not have political parties. We wouldn't have Republicans and Democrats. And to me, our country has been blessed with so much. We could be the example for the world of being a country of alchemists.
Yes.
That everybody saw everybody as being the same, and where there was justice and true mercy, understanding that this is my brother, I'm a part of you, I'm not separate from you. And then my second takeaway is, and it came from another book, but I think it reverberates through all of the books in his series, that I am holy as is all, as is all, as is all.
Beautiful. All right. Now, I want to just add to maybe, I think as we become an alchemist, our nation will become more one.
Yes.
There's still maybe 2 parties because that oneness may be expressed in different and unique ways, but there will be a sense of harmony of working together from the 2 different perspectives that will bring balance. That might be yes, I think that's what you're saying. Beautiful comments. Excellent. God bless your takeaway. Steve, what's your takeaway from today's class?
2. I have 2. First one is what I've said in other classes. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So if you want love, show love. If you want respect, show respect. The other one is fear is a liar.
Yeah.
I like that. Fear is a liar.
Fear is a liar. All right, let's go to Lethe. What's your takeaway from today's class session?
It is said that man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart.
Yeah.
And I think this is pretty much what you're saying today, which leads me to reassess myself more and pay attention to my thinking and really, really try to see the divine in everyone.
Beautiful. Excellent. Anne, what's your takeaway?
I like to be in love is to be in the high vibration of love. And I saw something recently that said, be in love with your life. How would you do that? You would create your own life.
Yeah.
To be in love with it.
Beautiful. Brenda, what's your takeaway?
As I was reading the book, I got to the part where if you have fear, then you're not expressing God, because God has no fear. So if you're holding on to some kind of fear, then at that time, in that moment, you're not expressing God.
Right. Beautiful. Let's go to Dave. What's your takeaway?
Well, I will say that I'm a very young 65-year-old man, but I wished I had known this when I was 25 years old.
Uh-huh.
When we stop attaching the should of what we have known or expected things to be, we open ourselves to seeing the divine or true nature. When we re-see the world as God intended, and God in it fully, there is no fear. And I do wish I'd have known that then, because I've lived in fear most all of my life, because I've always wanted to please God, but I always felt like I hadn't quite attained that goal.
Yeah. Great. Excellent. Let's go to Amy.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Right?
And it'd be great if everybody reminded themselves daily what our true identities are. That God is we come from God. He is our physical and spirit DNA.
Right. Good. Excellent. Norma, what's your takeaway?
I would just say today, I think we all feel the same way you do.
Yes.
We are all, we like to have known it earlier and would have been in a different world. But I would assign myself as a challenge for next week is to call out the good all the time, everywhere.
Beautiful. Call out the good. We're going to transform the world. The more good we speak, the more positive power we put out, that is an energy that elevates and is transforming. It is going to be amazing. All right, any takeaways from our students?
Diane Mundy.
Diane, great to have you with us today.
This was a reminder that I continue to need to work on seeing the divinity in all. I am working on becoming an alchemist.
Beautiful. That's great. I'd love to see that. That's great. Love to see you, Diane, because we're going to lunch, and we'd love to have you with us in class in person. So putting a little bug in your ear. Yes.
Delia Cheney.
Delia.
I am divine as are you. However, when I see you, I see a unique emanation of the one, and I daily remind myself that this uniqueness is God having fun in this realm.
I love that. Great takeaway, Delia. Thank you. I didn't know you were with us. That's great. Good to have you with us here too. Yes.
And Susan Dexter.
Susan Dexter. Excellent.
Seeing everyone as love, not what they're wearing on their hair.
Yes, I got that. I'm going to seeing that everyone is love, not what they're wearing. Bless that man bun. Yes. One day you may see me with one. In my dreams. Yeah. All right.
I have to say in that case that you should
take it down. Okay. All right. Anyone else? If not, thanks so much for being with us today. And if you've enjoyed these classes, we certainly appreciate any kind of support you can offer, a gift, a donation. You can go to our website at www.cityoflightatlanta.com. You'll find a donate button there, and your gifts are greatly appreciated. They enable us to continue this work of the Emerson Institute that's reaching out across the world with the powerful truths that's so transforming in the world. We appreciate your generosity and your support. Thank you in advance. Now, I look forward to seeing you next week as we continue our study and we move on to class number 5. We've got some great insights that we want to unfold, and we appreciate you being with us. I'll see you next week here at City of Light at Emerson Institute. God bless you.